Hello, viewers. I thought I'd do a very short video on this Vise. Yes, a Vise. Mainly because I was just using it, and I, whenever I use it, it, there's the story behind it, I should say. This Vise belonged to my grandfather, and he passed away um, 8.5 years ago. And I didn't get my hands on this vise into my workshop area until 2021, I believe. So this vise was installed in my grandfather's garage when my father was probably 5, 6 years old, really, really young. My father was born in 1951, and they moved into their home in 1955, I believe. So this was for the most part mounted in my grandfather's garage workshop area. Estimate as early as 1955, at some point in the 1950s. And I have no idea if it was brand new then. I kind of have a feeling it was not brand new because my grandparents, my grandfather was World War II veteran, came out of the war and basically married my grandmother, and they bought some special, I guess, mortgage from, being in the service and being a veteran, bought what is called a row home, a row house. And so I can't imagine he had extra money to buy a vise. What this was mounted to was a door that was flipped on its side and then mounted on a couple of blocks, and that was his workshop area. That door came from the inside of their home when I guess they wanted to remove a door that went from their kitchen to their dining room, just to not open floor plan, but just to remove the door so you could just walk back and forth. So I was born, let's just put it this way, at some point in the late 70s. And from the time I could walk, I remember going to his garage, watching him work on something. So when he passed away in '06, the garage workshop area was kind of left intact. And then when my grandmother passed in 2021, hard to believe it's been 3 years already, we then spent a day at her home. It was actually a very, very memorable day. I know death is a bad thing, sad, but it brought my sisters, my family all together once again in that home, which we had many memories of growing up, when everybody would be there regularly for holidays. And as my grandmother was in her 90s, that really didn't happen as often, especially as my sisters have grown, started their own families, and kind of everyone moved away. And that took place outside of Philadelphia, and no one really lived local at that point. So that day, a couple of us family members were hanging out in the garage, smoking cigars, which was kind of fun, and just reminiscing. And of course, taking some tools to remember them by that would be useful, just not really just taking things to take things. I never had a vise in my setup, and boy, and I have always thought about buying one. It's just one of those things, you don't think about it until you actually need one, and then when you figure out a way to do the job you're doing, you kind of forget about it again. So I had mounted this, I brought this here and then kind of let it sit. I finally mounted it probably 6 months or so after I brought it here. And so this, could be 70 years old. And if it's secondhand, it could be much older than that. My father seems to think it's closer to 100 years old. I love it. Every time I use it, I think of my grandfather, rest in peace. And, I think he would be very happy to know it's still here. And I don't want to do anything I guess one say, oh, you could restore it, but I don't know. I kind of like it as it is. And it's just mounted to this workbench table that I actually got for free a number of years ago. The place I worked was renovating, and they were getting rid of this bench, and it was just really perfect for this. So just thought I'd share. I know it's a Vise, It's not like a vintage lawnmower or a vintage fan or anything like that, but it is vintage itself, and I thought it would be worth sharing. And mainly I use it when I'm working on my lawnmower projects. There's been times I've used it for my fan projects. There's been a time or two where I can't separate easily the blades from the shaft, so I pulled the whole motor out and gently I've used the vise to help me, and that has helped a lot. So it gets pretty wide. And there was also a time where I had two hoses connected. No, not two hoses. A hose connected to a like a whatever you call it, the sprayer thing, and it just wouldn't come off. So I stuck the end in the vise, got a pair of vise grips, and because I had to remove the nozzle was broken. That's why I had to come off, and it would have been a real pain without the vise. Again, I've used it for many other things too, but those are some of the more recent things I've done with it. And was just working on a lawnmower today, and I thought I would just share a short video, which is going a little longer than I anticipated. But I think it's fun when anyone who has a hobby with vintage, whether vintage tools or items or whatever, to kind of share their background story and why it's important to them. If I would have saw something like this at a yard sale, I probably would have picked it up if I didn't have one. But it's extra special because I am third generation now using it, and it'll have it so long it'll probably go to my son's son one day. He is not even a teenager now, so we have a long way to go, but it should last. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, comment, and if you like old things, check out the channel. We have a lot of vintage stuff, mainly vintage fans. See you on the next one.